Hello viewers, welcome to this video. In this video, we are going to be looking at how to provision your Kubernetes cluster using Amazon's EKS service. So Amazon's EKS service is a managed Kubernetes service, which means the control plane, the master nodes will be taken care by Amazon itself, and we'll be responsible for deploying our worker nodes. So we have full control over our worker nodes. So let's see how to do that in Amazon using Eksctl. So Eksctl is a command line tool which can be used to provision Kubernetes cluster, to manage, upgrade, update, and so on. So I've been wanting to do this video for a very long time, and now I've got some time to record this video. So hopefully you will find this video useful. Few users asked me to do Amazon's EKS Kubernetes service, so that's what we're going to be looking at in this video. Okay, so on the web browser here, I've logged into my AWS Management Console, and I'm going to look at the documentation on how to use the Amazon's EKS service. EKS is Elastic Kubernetes Service, managed Kubernetes service by Amazon. And let's go and search for the documentation from AWS. AWS, they just do a really good work on the documentation side. So anything you want to get done in AWS, if you go to their documentation, it will be there. So EKS, Amazon EKS. All right, so that's there, Amazon's EKS service. Just go through the documentation, what's EKS is all about, and the pricing and so on. So let's get started with the service. So getting started with Amazon. So there are a couple of ways you can provision your Kubernetes cluster in AWS using EKS, the managed one. So one is using the Eksctl command line tool, and the other one is using the management console, AWS management console. But if you're trying it out, it's always a good practice to use the Amazon's management console, AWS management console, to create your EKS cluster. And you'll have to do everything manually by yourself, but that's well documented. At least give it a try once so that you will get to know all the components involved in setting up a Kubernetes cluster. So once you're familiar with all those, you can then use the Eksctl command, which is like an automation tool. So once you know what it's going to provision, then you can just do Eksctl. It will do all the necessary things for you. It's really very simple. So that's what we will be looking at in this video, how to use Eksctl to deploy the Kubernetes cluster in AWS. But before that, I'll just quickly go through this documentation, what is actually required to set up a cluster in Amazon using EKS. So if we go to this link here, getting started with AWS Management Console. So what it involves, Amazon EKS prerequisites. So you need to create an EKS service role first, and then you will have to create VPC. You will have to create the subnets, and then you will have to install and configure the kubectl. You will have to use the AWS CLI. I've done a separate video on AWS CLI, how to set up your AWS CLI tool. So let's go ahead and see how to do that. youtube.com and search for AWS, just me AWS CLI. Should be Kube AWS 4. Yeah, that's the one. Install AWS CLI using Python pip. So go through that video to set up your AWS CLI. By the way, AWS CLI configuration is required in order to use Eksctl. So Eksctl will be looking for your AWS credentials, which you would have set up while you are doing this video. All right, so AWS CLI installation and configuration is mandatory. You need to do that. And then you create your EKS cluster, and then you will create the node group, create the kubeconfig file, and then expose the service, launch a managed node group. So that's where you will be creating your worker nodes. You create an IAM role for the EKS worker node and attach the role to the worker node instances, and then that's it. So you can then start using kubectl to that's basically the things that you will need to create it manually using the management console. So you'll have to create the VPCs, internet gateway, NAT gateway, public and private subnets, couple of roles to attach to your instances and so on. So that's all required if you have to do it through the management console. I would advise you to go through that once just for a little bit of practice. But in this video, we will be using the Eksctl tool. So let's get into that documentation. Install the latest AWS CLI. So I've already got my AWS CLI configured. AWS S3 ELS, for example. Nope. And AWS EC2 describe VPCs. Yep, I've got one VPC. So that's my AWS CLI command line tool configured. That's good. And now I'm going to install Eksctl. Okay, so I'm on Linux, so selecting that tab, and I'm going to copy that command, the curl command, and paste it here. Okay, so it's extracting to /temp. It's not here, and if I do ls/temp, Eksctl, there you go, and we got to move that to user local bin. Sudo move temp Eksctl to user local bin, which Eksctl, there we go. So we've got our Eksctl minus version. Okay, so the version is from the git tag 0.11.1, and there is this help command always, Eksctl help and Eksctl create get update. What we will be doing is we will be creating a cluster with Linux only workloads. Okay, so that's the command. Eksctl create cluster. So the command is Eksctl create. We can look into the options that are available for Eksctl create cluster. So Eksctl create -- help. So what resources can we create using Eksctl? So we can Eksctl create cluster. We can create a cluster. We can create node group and all those things. So we'll be looking at how to create an Eksctl cluster. So Eksctl create cluster -- help. Okay, so there are a lot of options that you can pass. Okay, so I'm going to keep this for reference while I'm going to create the actual command that I'm going to run. So Eksctl and create cluster -- name, that is mandatory. So I'm going to call it first EKS. Okay, so first EKS, that's okay. Version 1.14, and if I look for version here, yeah, the version, you can specify what version of Kubernetes you want. Valid options are 1.12, 1.13, 1.14. So at this time, at this point of recording this video, the latest Kubernetes version available is 1.17, but if you're going with the managed EKS service in Amazon, the latest version they are offering is 1.14. So if you don't specify, it defaults to 1.14, so I don't need that option. Actually, region is important, -- region. So I'm going to choose EU West 1, which is Ireland, or I could choose EU West 2, which is London. I'm going to choose the Ireland one. Node group name. Okay, so where is node group name? -- node group name, the name of the node group that you want to generate. Okay, -- node group name is standard nodes or standard workers, whatever you want to call. And then node type -- node type. So this is for the worker node. Okay, so the master nodes, the controller nodes will be taken care of by Amazon, but you're going to specify what instance type you want for your worker nodes for this node group standard node. So I'm going to go with t3.small. So t3.small, let's look at the instance type. AWS instance type, and if I look at t3.small, it comes with 2 CPU and 2 gig of memory, so that's good for a worker node. And t3.small, that's okay. Node type, that's what we just gave, node instance type. If you don't specify the node type, the default will be m5.large. I don't want a huge machine. I'm running on my free tier, but anyway, it's going to cost a little bit of money for me doing this video, so I'm just to keep the cost low, I'm going to choose t3.small. That's sufficient for a worker node. Okay, minus nodes. How many number of worker nodes do you want? Okay, where is it? Yep, minus nodes. Total number of nodes. Default is 2, so I'm going to go with the default 2. Minus nodes, minimum number of nodes, maximum number of nodes. You can specify. To start with, I need 2 nodes, and it can auto scale up to 10 nodes using the auto scaling group. The Eksctl will automatically create the auto scaling group, and depending on what you give for the minimum and maximum value, it can use for the auto scaling. But I'm just gonna leave it as the default. So the default min and default max is 2. Okay, node volume size, node volume type, I don't need all those. If you want SSH access to your worker nodes, you need to pass this option minus SSH access, and you also need to pass a public key so that public key will get copied to all the EC2 instances, and then you can use your private key to log in to those instances. I don't need those things. Node AMI, if you've got any specific AMIs that you want to use as your worker node, then you can use that. I don't need that. And the final option is minus manage. So that's mandatory. I think that's all we need. Eksctl, create cluster, the name of the cluster, which is first EKS. I'm deploying this EKS cluster in the EU West 1 region. Node group name is standard nodes. Node type, I'm selecting t3.small with 2 CPU and 2 gig of memory for my worker nodes. The number of nodes is defaults to 2, so I'll be having 2 worker nodes, and you have to pass the minus managed option. Okay, so that's all it takes. You need to configure your AWS CLI before you can use your Eksctl. Alright, so let's run this command. Eksctl version 0.11.1, it has chosen the EU West 1 region because we've passed in that option. And it is doing something now. It does all these by creating CloudFormation stack. Okay, let's go to our management console and see what it's actually going to deploy. Okay, so this will take like 10 to 15 minutes. I'm not sure, but not more than 20 minutes. I think it took me about 10 minutes last time. Okay, so now it says it's deploying the Eksctl first EKS cluster. So now it's deploying the managed the master nodes, which you won't be able to see in your EC2 instances. But once it has created the EKS cluster, then it will go ahead and create the node group. All right. Okay, so what are we looking at? We are going to look into the CloudFormation because it uses the CloudFormation stack to deploy all these resources. CloudFormation. Okay, so CloudFormation, and in here, so that's the stack name, Eksctl first EKS cluster. And if I do, we can also check that from our command line, AWS CloudFormation list stacks. CloudFormation stack, DevOps test, no, that's not the one. Eksctl first EKS cluster. Yeah, so that's the stack that I've verified from my command line. Okay, click on that stack and see what it's actually doing. Okay, that's the stack. Look at the events, and it is creating all these resources for us. And there is a resource tag. Let's see what resources this CloudFormation stack is going to deploy in our AWS. Okay, so security groups, Eksctl, ingress, internet gateway, NAT gateway, policies, row tables, and we have the subnets, public subnets, private subnets, and so on, VPC gateways and so on. So it's going to deploy all these, and you can see its creation in progress. So now let's go and look at our VPC, and there are two VPCs now, your VPC. Yep, so that's my default VPC for my AWS account, and that's the new VPC that this Eksctl is creating for me. So that's the new VPC with the CIDR 192.168/16. And if you look into the subnets, there are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 subnets, because I've got 3 availability zones. You can see that here. I've got EU West 1A, 1B, 1C. So 3 availability zones. So it is creating me 3 public subnets and 3 private subnets. Okay, let's check. If I choose this subnet here and look at the route table, and the route table, the default route is going via the internet gateway, which means this is a public subnet. And if I look at next one, that's going through the NAT gateway, which means that's a private subnet. And that's a private subnet, that's a public subnet, a private subnet, and a public subnet. Okay, so it has created 3 public subnets and 3 private subnets, and we can look at the route tables. Okay, so it has created some route tables, it has created an internet gateway, and it has created a NAT gateway, and it will also create like a couple of roles for us. And if I go to IAM and search for, if I go to the roles, EKS Fargate pods. Okay, so those are the 2 roles that it has created for us. And now, where would you go and see this cluster? So this is EKS, Elastic Kubernetes Service. It will be available in your ECS service. So search for ECS. And in here, I don't have any Elastic Container Service running, but that's the page where you will see your EKS cluster. So you can see here Amazon EKS, and if you click on the clusters, it will show you your cluster. So the first EKS, that's the name we gave for our cluster, first EKS. Kubernetes version is 1.14 and the status is creating. Okay, so if I click on the cluster name, you can see some details about the cluster, and the node group is empty. So first it's creating the master nodes, the cluster itself. So once that stack is complete, then it will go ahead and create the node group. So once the node group is also complete, then we can connect to our Kubernetes cluster. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video here and come back after it has deployed the cluster. Okay, so you can see here it has created our cluster, and now it is going to create the node group for us. So if I refresh this page, the cluster, it says the cluster status is active. So that's our cluster certificate authority, and now it's creating the node group. So there is no node group at the moment, but the CloudFormation stack is kicking in, and it's going to create a new node group for us. And if I open the EC2 service in a new tab, and you will see a couple of nodes in our instances. You would be able to see 2 instances. At the moment there are no instances, but we can go to the CloudFormation and see what it's actually doing. CloudFormation, open that in the new tab, and now you will see the second stack. So the first one, which is this one, Eksctl first EKS cluster, so that's here. The stack creation has been complete, and now it's doing the node group stack. So if I click on that one and look at the resources, you can see what resources it's going to create. Standard nodes. So it will be creating the EC2 node group with the EC2 instances. Okay, so let's give it few more minutes. EC2 instance, and let's refresh this page. Yep, so those are the 2 worker nodes that it is provisioning for us. They are t3.small. Okay, and let's wait for it to complete. So once that's complete, we should be able to see the node group in our cluster. Okay, so if I refresh this page, cluster, and you can see the node group, standard nodes. So the name of the node group we specified was standard nodes. Desired size is 2, Kubernetes version is 1.14, and the status is creating. Okay, let's wait for that, and then we should be able to connect to this Kubernetes cluster from our host machine. So as part of this cluster provisioning, it will also copy the kube config file to our home directory. So at the moment, if I do ls.kube, there is no directory .kube, but once this eksctl create cluster command completes, it will create the .kube directory, and it will also download the kube config file. So we should be ready. But before that, make sure to download the kubectl. So I've got kubectl already in my path. So once this command completes, I should be able to interact with this EKS cluster. Okay, I'm going to pause the video and come back when this command is complete. Alright, so the command has completed, but unfortunately I've got an error that says unable to use kubectl with EKS cluster. Check the kubectl version. Credential scope unable to connect to the server, getting credentials. Okay, so I did a bit of Googling to find out what is causing this problem. So that's the AWS CLI version and the Boto core, which is the Python SDK version mismatch. So if you are getting this type of error, then you won't be able to connect to your cluster. But I already fixed that. So you just need to upgrade your AWS CLI. On my other development machine, I didn't see this error because I was using the latest AWS CLI version and the latest Boto core version from pip. But this is my different machine, so where I'm seeing this error. It's good to see this error. In case if you see this error, the solution is to upgrade your AWS CLI tool. So pip install --user --upgrade AWS CLI, and then also Boto core. I just did that, and it updated my AWS CLI version and Boto core version, and now I can connect to the cluster. ls.kube/. Okay, so that's this config file. We didn't have the .kube directory before, but eksctl has created the .kube directory, and it has downloaded the kube config file. So now we can connect to the cluster. Let's see, kubectl get nodes. Sorry, kubectl get nodes. Cool. So those are our two worker nodes. You won't be seeing the master node here because the master nodes, the controller nodes, are managed by Amazon themselves, and the auto scaling is all handled. High availability, everything is handled by Amazon. So the only thing we have control is over the worker node. So that's our cluster that's running fine. Kubectl get all. Okay, so kubectl get namespace. We have all these namespaces. Kubectl -n kube system get pods, for example. Okay, so we've got core DNS, kube proxy, and so on. And you won't be seeing the normal kube API scheduler, kube controller manager, kube API server, kube scheduler, kube controller manager, those master components here, because that's all done by Amazon. So you won't be seeing that. Okay, let's try and deploy an Nginx container quickly. Kubectl run Nginx --image Nginx replicas 2. That's created. Kubectl get all. Yep, container is getting created, and while it's doing that, we can also see the other commands that we can do with eksctl. Eksctl help. So we can do eksctl get, update, upgrade, eksctl delete. If you want to delete your eksctl cluster, we can use the eksctl delete command. Eksctl scale, if you want to scale your resources, if you want to drain your node group. Eksctl utils, completion, version, there are lots of things that you can do. Okay, let's try our Nginx container. Kubectl get all. Cool, our Nginx containers are running fine. Kubectl delete deploy Nginx. All right, so that's gone. Let's try eksctl get, for example, -help eksctl get cluster, eksctl get cluster. Okay, so that's our cluster. That's our only cluster we've got, eksctl EU version. Okay, and we can do, if you want to upgrade your cluster, that is eksctl upgrade, eksctl upgrade -help. Okay, eksctl upgrade your node group. All right, so I was looking for how to upgrade the Kubernetes version. Maybe it's eksctl update, eksctl update -help update cluster. Okay, the flags are okay. I don't know, I need to find that out. eksctl utils, let's see what's in the utils. eksctl utils -help. So we have eksctl utils write kubeconfig file for a given cluster, describe stacks, update kube proxy, describe stacks, update core DNS, node group health. Okay, let's try that. eksctl utils node group health. Cluster must be set. Okay, --cluster first k8s. I think that's the name of our cluster. Let's verify. First -eks actually. Okay, first -eks. Okay, name must be set. Okay, let's go for the help option. It's asking for too many questions. Help --cluster name of the node group. Okay, so we are trying to find the health of our node group. eksctl utils node group health --cluster is first eks node name is standard nodes. No health issues found. Node group standard node is active. That's all looking good. And if I refresh this page here, you should be able to see the node group here. You can add additional node groups. Say for example, this node group standard nodes, we've deployed a couple of nodes with t3.small with its own auto scaling group. And we can also deploy additional node groups. Say for example, if we want M5 large or some high-end machines with more memory and more CPU, you can add additional node groups and so on. Okay, so what else can we do? All right, so now I'm going to delete this cluster and see how long it's going to take. And to delete the cluster, eksctl delete -help. Delete cluster, you can delete node group, you can delete IAM service account, which we don't actually need. Cluster and node group. If I just delete the cluster, it's going to delete everything that we've deployed, that eksctl has deployed for us. So let's try and do that. eksctl delete -help. Let's keep that for our reference. eksctl delete cluster -help. Okay, name of the cluster region. You can create cluster with the same name but on different regions. So when it comes to deleting your cluster, if you've got more than one cluster with the same name but on different regions, you will have to specify the region as well. --wait command. If you don't specify --wait, the eksctl delete cluster command will just return immediately while the AWS is deleting all the resources. But if you want to be sure that all the resources have been deleted, you can pass the --wait option. So once the command completes, it just waits for all the resources to be deleted, and once the command completes, you will be sure that all the resources have been deleted. Okay, let's delete our cluster now. eksctl delete cluster --name is first eks --region is EU West 1. I don't think I need to give the region because I've got just one cluster, so I don't really have to pass the region, but it's good practice to specify the region to be on a safer side, and minus wait. Okay, so that's deleting the cluster, cleaning up the load balancer, and it's so okay, now it's going in the reverse order. First it's going to delete the node group, and if I click refresh node group, and you can see the status is deleting. So once it has deleted the node group, it will go to the cluster and it will delete the cluster. Okay, EC2 instance, if I click on the refresh, it should be shutting down. It's still ready. Okay, refresh. Okay, let's go and look at the cloud formation, and if I refresh, delete in progress. So now it's deleting the node group, and then it will delete the cluster itself. Okay, delete in progress, go to EC2, refresh, and these two should be terminated. Okay, so the first one, it's shutting down the first EC2 instance, and it will then shut down the other one as well. Let's wait for it shutting down. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video here and come back when it has done the node group deletion, and then it will delete the cluster. Yeah. Okay, so it has deleted the node groups, and if I refresh this EC2 instance, look at that, both the EC2 instances, both of our worker nodes have been terminated. And in EKS, if I refresh the cluster page, the node group should have been gone by now. Yep, there are no node groups, and now it's deleting the cluster, and you can see the status here, deleting the cluster. And in the cloud formation stack, delete in progress, first EKS cluster. By the way, this should be gone by now. Delete in progress, it should say delete complete, and now it's deleting the cluster. Let's wait for it to delete the cluster, and then we can verify whether it has cleaned up all the resources like VPC, subnet, internet gateway, route table, NAT gateways, security groups, and so on. Okay, so the delete cluster command completed successfully, and now if I do eksctl get cluster, no clusters found. Okay, I don't know why this cloud formation stack is still pending, delete in progress, so it should disappear anytime soon. But our EC2 instances are all gone, EKS, and if I go to clusters, okay, so our cluster has been deleted, no clusters. And let's go and check our VPC. Okay, so our VPC, your VPCs, we are back to our one VPC, which is the default VPC. The VPC eksctl created for us has been deleted. Subnets, all the subnets have been deleted. So we had like 3 public and 3 private subnets, all of them deleted. All the route tables deleted. The internet gateway for the new VPC deleted. And the NAT gateway is also gone. So the status is deleted, but it will take some time to disappear from this window. Okay, so that's it. That's how you create your cluster. That's how you use your managed EKS, managed Kubernetes service from Amazon. It's very simple. The master, the control plane will be taken care by Amazon, and you will take care of the worker nodes yourself. You can add as many node groups as you want, and you can upgrade your cluster. You can drain your instances. You can do whatever you want. I would advise you to go and read the documentation about eksctl, all from the help command, the eksctl help. Go through each commands one by one, and then just play with it for a while until you get familiarized. I hope this video was useful. If you've got any questions or any issues following this video, please let me know. You might experience some issues which I might not have experienced, so it's a learning opportunity for me as well. Try this, and if you've got any questions, let me know and I'll be happy to help you. And please share this video with your friends if you find it really useful, and don't forget to subscribe to my channel. I will see you all in my next video. Bye bye.